Somewhere in the world right now, there is a family worth billions who has never given an interview, never been photographed, and whose own neighbors couldn't tell you their name. They didn't disappear, they never showed up. Let's get into it. Level 1. Opting out. The first level costs almost nothing, and almost nobody does it. There are companies called data brokers whose entire business is collecting your address, your phone number, your relatives' names, and selling that file to anyone who asks. Most countries now allow you to formally request removal. It takes a few hours, it's mostly free, and it quietly removes you from the version of the internet that lets a stranger find your house in 4 clicks. Here's the insight. At level 1, disappearing isn't about hiding. It's about no longer being the easiest version of yourself to find. Most people are searchable by default. Level 1 just turns that default off. The buyer here is not a billionaire yet. He's the guy 3 years out from selling his company, who read one article about a founder getting a threatening letter at his home address and spent an afternoon fixing that. Cheap, quiet, and almost everyone above this level started exactly here. Level 2, the name on nothing. At level 2, you stop owning things. On paper, the house, the car, the boat, all of it gets held by a limited liability company instead of by you personally. In places like Delaware, Wyoming, or Nevis, that company can be formed without your name appearing in any public registry. Anyone who looks up the deed to your house finds a company name. Anyone who looks up the company finds, often, nothing at all. At level 2, you stopped technically existing in the paperwork for your own life. The house is real. You live in it every day. The buyer at this level is the entrepreneur who just closed a deal large enough that his name started appearing in trade publications, and who would simply prefer that the next person who searches it doesn't also find his home address, his car, and a photo of his dog. Level 3, the trust. Level 3 is where you stop owning things in a much bigger sense. A Cook Islands trust, reportedly costing somewhere between $12,000 and $25,000 to set up and $5,000 to $8,000 a year to maintain, transfers your assets to a licensed trustee on the other side of the planet. Legally, those assets are no longer yours. You're a beneficiary. The trustee holds the title. Here's why this matters more than it sounds like it should. Cook Islands law reportedly does not recognize foreign court judgments, so picture the actual mechanism. A lawsuit happens. A court somewhere orders you to pay. And the honest answer from your own lawyer is that you legally cannot because you don't own the thing the court thinks you own. Someone else does. On an island most plaintiffs have never heard of, the buyer here is a surgeon or a real estate developer, someone with a profession that comes with a permanently raised hand for lawsuits. He's not hiding from the government. He's hiding his net worth from anyone who might one day sue him for a number larger than his insurance covers. Level 4. The second self. Level 4 is the first one where you, personally, change. Citizenship by investment programs let you legally acquire a second passport for a payment to a government. No birthplace required. Vanuatu's program has reportedly started around $130,000. A handful of Caribbean nations, after aligning their terms in 2024, reportedly sit around $200,000 and up. At the high end, certain European programs have run into the hundreds of thousands of euros. And Malta's version was reportedly shut down in 2025 after a European court ruled the entire concept of selling citizenship incompatible with EU law. That last detail matters. Even buying a new legal identity has its own political risk. The passport you bought might, one day, be the passport a court decides shouldn't have existed. But when it works, here's what it actually buys. Not just travel, optionality. A second legal identity recognized by a government that exists independently of whatever happens to your first one. The buyer at this level has started thinking of citizenship the way he thinks about currency. You don't hold all of your wealth in one Why would you hold all of your legal existence in one? Either. So far, every level has been about paperwork. Ownership, trusts, passports, all of it exists on documents, in registries, on file somewhere. The next levels stop being about documents entirely. They're about a much stranger question: where is this person? And increasingly, the honest answer is that almost nobody actually knows. Level 5, the unlisted life. At level 5, the home you live in does not have your name on it, doesn't appear in any database connected to you, and was very likely never the address anyone thinks of when they think of you. Multiple residences in multiple countries held through the structures from levels 2 and 3 with staff who've never been told whose house this actually is. Here's the insight worth sitting with. At this level, the goal isn't that nobody can find this person if they tried hard enough. It's that almost nobody would think to try, because the public version of this person's life and the actual version have quietly stopped being the same map. Level 6, the foundation. At level 6, the structures from levels 2 through 4 stop being separate tools and become one permanent architecture. A private foundation, often based in a jurisdiction like Liechtenstein or Panama, owns the trusts, which own the companies, which own the assets. The person at the center of all of it isn't an owner of anything. They're a beneficiary of a foundation that was established on paper by someone else for purposes described in language general enough to mean almost anything. This is often built to last generations. Think about what that does to the next generation specifically. They never had a before. There's no earlier version of their life where their name was attached to assets, because the structure was already in place before they could speak. For them, this isn't a transition. It's just how the world has always worked. Level 7, never arriving. And here is the inversion this entire video has been building toward. Everything up to this point describes an active process. A person who existed publicly, who took deliberate steps level by level to become harder to see. But the most effective version of disappearing was never a process at all. There are families in cities all over the world, reportedly worth fortunes, that would place them near the top of any wealth ranking, who have simply never been on one. Wealth that was made quietly, generations ago, in industries nobody glamorizes. This is the difference. Levels 1 through 6 are about subtraction, removing your name from things it used to be on. Level 7 never had the addition in the first place. You cannot make someone disappear who was never seen. There's no record to scrub, no old address to abandon, no previous life to legally separate yourself from. The buyer at level 7 isn't a buyer. There's no purchase, no transaction, no moment where this kicked in. There's just a family that, generations ago, made a different set of choices about visibility and never had reason to revisit them. Here's the thing almost nobody says about all of this. Every level from 1 through 6 requires someone, somewhere, to know the truth. A trustee, a foundation officer, a lawyer holding the real structure chart in a drawer. Disappearing on paper still means someone is holding the paper. Level 7 is the only level where that's not true, because there was never a moment anyone needed to be told.